You've touched on it a little bit there. I mean, why do you think it's just so particularly important then, product marketing, in sort of today's age then for sort of B2B tech businesses?
For me, if you look at the SaaS landscape, the number of startups is growing rapidly. We like a couple of years back, I think 10 years back, like there was only a few, and now there's like absolute thousands, and every day probably hundreds or tens more start, which is just it's incredibly difficult to as a buyer to look at like the tools that we have today and define like, okay, what's the right ones for me. We're hearing more about, okay, what's the perfect tech stack? That's very much up in time. How do you connect everything? So like if you don't have someone to really understand what job you're hired to do as a company or as a piece of software, if that is it, then it's going to be really difficult for you to compete. Because you're going to be in a position where you think you're competing against everything. And that's really dangerous, because then you also start to provide information to your product team that you should develop XYZ feature. So all of a sudden, instead of just being a form, you start to become like a workspace. So like you start building spreadsheets because, it's important to have like a place where you can manipulate data. But really what is end of the day, the most important thing to understand is what's the job to be done for the customer. Because if you understand that well, then you don't have to necessarily build for the complete solution. You just need to figure out, okay, who will my strategic partners be? How can I partner with other pieces of software so that we can help each other grow hand in hand? And that'll enable us to just exclusively focus on what we're really good at and take everything else and move it over to a partner that can do that much better than us. Because end of the day, what you're delivering to the market, the promise that you deliver, you need to also like deliver that in the end and make sure that like people actually get what they're looking for. Because if you can only complete their job to a certain extent, there's going to be another competitor that comes up and takes it out from underneath your feet.
And they talk, certainly within sort of product-led businesses, getting to that aha moment as quick as you can, because the attention is so short for people. They will move on to something else if they don't get that aha moment quickly enough.